guys, this is Stephanie and I am Stacks on Stacks on Stacks. Today I am coming to you with day 25 of the Spring To It Videothon. Today's topic is favorite obscure reads. Now, this one took me a little bit because I was like, you know, what qualifies as obscure? Like, is it a book that's just not popular or a book that's just not well known? So I kind of dug back to my roots a little bit, saying that I have a good 10 years minimum on everybody on Booktube, and I decided to start with books that I read like in elementary school, middle school, and high school, because honestly those are books that aren't particularly popular right now, but there were some of those that were really good reads, and that is what I'm going to talk about today. First one I'm going to talk about today is Z for Zechariah by Robert C. O'Brien. Now, they made a movie of this a few years ago. I didn't love the movie. Like, they tried to adult it up a little bit, and I just found it, I don't know, too far from the original book. This is probably a YA book before YA was a huge thing. This was actually written in 1974, so it's not particularly new, but it is a book that has aged well. Basically, there is some sort of a nuclear holocaust that happens, and there's a girl who lives in a valley that hasn't been affected by this holocaust, and she seems to be the sole survivor, until a guy kind of wanders into her valley, and then she finds him to be a bit of a jerkwad and is regretting nursing him back to health. So it is a futuristic dystopian, you could say, but it is a good book. It is a good read. We have most of our book from her point of view, and what I think I like about this is she's not just another dumb girl. She's actually very smart, and she's very self-sufficient, and those are qualities I tend to like in my characters. It's probably a book you haven't heard of, but it's definitely a book that is worth a read, and it's a pretty quick read too. It's not a long book, and it's a pretty fast-moving book too. Another one I probably read in 3rd or 4th grade is Stone Words, A Ghost Story by Pam Concord. There you go. So basically in this one we are following a girl whose name is Zoe, and she makes a friend with a girl named Zoe Louise. But Zoe Louise lives in the same house she lives in because Zoe Louise is a ghost. And they're basically separated by a staircase that leads back like 100 years when she goes up it to Zoe Louise's world. And this, actually, I remember reading this book the very first time I read it. It gave me like some creepy feels, and I was like, oh my goodness, this book is kind of scary. But I did finish it because I wanted to know what was going to happen, and I have since read it a few times, not anytime recently. And it, again, it's a really small book, really quick read, but it's a really good book, and it's a really good read. It's one that I recall enjoying quite a bit, and quite obscure, might I add. And this book was actually written in 1990. My next is a read that I actually just got in the mail not too long ago, and that is A Number of the Stars by Lois Lowry. She's the woman who wrote The Giver Quartet. This is a book that follows a girl who is a Jew during World War II, and it is how she would like to escape and not die. It is also not a very long book. It's a book I probably read in 3rd or 4th grade, and it's a book that has definitely stuck with me through the years, as well as being a book that probably not a lot of people have heard of. This one was written in 1989, so I believe it was before the Giver books. This is a really, really good book. It's again, it's like a middle grade or a YA book, of, as you could say, but kind of before the genre is super popular. And it is a very quick read. So if you're looking for something quick that is still heartfelt and well written, I would go with this. Now the next is a trilogy that you probably never heard of in your entire life. This is a trilogy that I read maybe in middle school, but definitely like as a freshman and sophomore in high school. And it is called Stryker's Bride. As you can see, this cover is being held together with tape because I read it so many times in high school. Then is Stryker's Killdeer, and the last one is Stryker's Morning Sun. Now these books are really quite good. They're by Robin Hardy, and I don't know anything else she's ever written. Basically, we follow a woman whose name is Adair, and she lives in Texas, and she doesn't have much going on in her life. She's working at a bank, but she's terrible with numbers, and she's trying to pass an accounting class so she can get better with numbers, but she just does not have a head for numbers. And she kind of meets a guy, but he goes through her drive-thru with a motorcycle helmet on, and he doesn't take it off, so she doesn't know what he looks like. So she really met a guy. And then she gets propositioned through a letter from a millionaire in the area who is interested in marrying her. He's not interested in dating her. He's interested in marrying her. So she has to decide from a few letters and some paper clippings and things like that if he is the marrying sort. This is a Christian novel, but it's not like a throw it down your throat Christian novel. It's more like a very clean book kind of Christian novel. It is a very enjoyable book. I think I reread it about like a year and a half ago or something. I was just like, I'm in the mood to read it. It is such a fast read. You just fly through the book. You don't even realize it. I read it in like one afternoon and got slightly sunburned. So, but it really is an enjoyable book, a quick read. It is kind of romancy, but at the same time, I feel like we're just getting to know her as a person and watching her develop. And we follow the decisions that she decides to make, good or bad. It's still a great book. I also read in early high school, Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. Now, I have read pretty much everything Francine Rivers has written, except her newest book, which actually I don't know if it's out or not. And then she has some novellas that I never quite got around to reading. But basically, Francine Rivers is a bit of an obscure read, I would have to say. I don't think she's super well known. If she is, I haven't heard a lot about her on Booktube. She is also a Christian author, but still like a Christian author who writes books that are clean. She's not necessarily like shoving God down your throat, which is good because nobody likes to have things shoved down their throat. Now, I grabbed this one because it's probably one I've read the most, though. Like I said, I've read most of her books, not all her novellas, and I have most of them as well. This one, it may not have been one of my favorites, but I would say it has to be one of the most easily read, easily to relate to kind of books. Basically, we are following a girl who is named Angel, and she is a prostitute out in California during like the gold rush, 1840s, 50s, stuff like that. And she's a prostitute, but she was actually sold into prostitution as a child, which is just the hardest part of this book to read. It makes me cry every time, and I can't get through it because I just get so mad at the people. I want to beat them senseless and hurt them. So we catch up with her when she's an adult, and she comes across a guy who is not like any guy she's ever met before. He wants to talk to her, not like sleep with her. And so at first she's kind of antagonistic and she thinks she's seen it all, but he actually seems to be an authentic person that cares for her. And he's like, do you really want to live like this? Do you want something else? And he asks her these questions that make her very uncomfortable, and she doesn't want to talk about it. And eventually he ends up buying her contract. So according to her, he owns her, and according to him, he married her. So it is a book with two sides to it, but it is a book of somebody's growth, and it is a book of redemption and what true love is. And it is a really good book. It is a book that I still cry when I think about it because it's just that good a book and obscure. Also in high school, I read Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. This book, again, it's going to make you cry. I don't feel like this is a super well-known book. It should be. It's a classic. It was probably written in like the 60s. I'm going to look. I have the book in my hand. This book was actually written in 1959, and most of it is letters and diary entries. Basically, there is a guy named Charlie who is mentally slow, and scientists decide to start running tests to see if they can fix that in his head. Well, in people's heads, and he signs up to be a test subject. Now, they've been testing it on this rat named Algernon, and then they start testing it on Charlie. And basically, you can see through the letters that he's writing in here and all the stuff in this book. They have some reports and stuff like that too. You can see how he is progressing and exactly what's going on in his life. So not just like, does it work? Does it actually make him smarter? But how he processes things emotionally and psychologically and like physically. He's no longer happy living where he was, things like that. And it's really a good read. It's an eye-opening read. It's something I read a long time ago, something I would like to reread, but it is fairly obscure. And the next one I have is Olivia Jules and the Overactive Imagination by Helen Fielding. This is the same gal who wrote Bridget Jones' Diary, which again I read forever ago and completely enjoyed because she is a hot mess and it's just fun to read about her. Olivia, however, is not a hot mess. She is a reporter for a newspaper, but she basically is always kind of envisioning trouble where there isn't, and her boss is aware of that. So when she goes off to Miami to cover a story, she starts to find that there is just this international undercover plot, and there are terrorists and things are going amok, and of course, nobody believes her because she has this overactive imagination and always jumps to conclusions, but for once, she's right. So basically, we are following her on a journey where she is following her gut and doing what she thinks is right. And again, she's a smart girl. She's incredibly independent, and it's just an all-around fun book. The next one I have that is fairly obscure is The Secret Life of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd. This is a book that kind of talks about racism in the South in the 60s. We have our main character, Lily. Her mother is gone, and she's being raised by an abusive alcoholic father. Now, I'm forgetting exactly how she ends up in the hands of these three lovely black ladies, but she does. And they start to teach her basically how to be a woman, how to be a person, how to be a good person, and you join her on that journey. And then you learn about the racism in the South. White people against black people, and how it's an issue that these three black women are raising this girl, and things along those lines. But honestly, it's a terrific book. I don't hear about it a lot on Booktube at all, but if you liked The Hate U Give, you'd probably enjoy this as you would enjoy The Help, and you would also enjoy To Kill a Mockingbird. Just read them all. And the last obscure read I have is not one book, but many. Basically Anything by Agatha Christie. She has quickly in the last year and a half become one of my favorite authors. I find myself reading about one of her books a month. She wrote like 90 some odd books, so I can keep this up for a while. Basically, she is a murder mystery writer, and you're probably thinking 93 books, murder mystery, how many combinations could there be? Well, you'd be amazed, because I've probably read about 15 of her books, and they've all been different. All of them. You don't see the killer coming. It's not him, it's her, it's not this, it's that, it's not here, it's there. There's always some sort of combination. It's always a little bit different, and it's always enjoyable. Like, I am impressed that this woman was writing in 1920, 30, 40, 50, 60, and she's coming up with new plots. And the kicker is, some of these you may read and be like, oh, that's like that other book, and I read that book. Because people take these plot ideas and they put them in new and recent books, and then you're going to be like, it's a new and recent book. No, the original was written in 1930. Things like that. She is completely ahead of her time, and I absolutely adore her books. And I do feel they are obscure. I feel like people don't know who she is. Now, some people might know Murder on the Orient Express because the movie came out last fall and it was super fun. But there's so much more to her than that. And actually, the Hercule Poirot books aren't even my favorite ones. The other ones are my favorite ones. The Hercule Poirot ones, I would say I tolerate. And those are my obscure reads. Hopefully, I talked about a book that interested you, that you think you might like. A lot of these are older books, so you might have a hard time finding them through your library. You might be able to find them on Amazon, but if you have questions about these books or authors, or I missed some pertinent piece of information, please feel free to ask me down below. These are all books that I have read. I think I've read them all numerous times, and they're books that I enjoy and would probably just love to read again. So feel free to ask me questions down below, or you can comment with an obscure read of yours, a book that you like that's just not very well known that you think is a fantastic book, because I'm always up for more fantastic books. If this sounds like fun, by all means participate with us. I have linked all the prompts down below, so you can do a video that we've already done, or you can do a video that we're about to do, or you can release them on the same day as us. Whatever makes you happy makes us happy, and be sure to let me know, because I want to be watching those videos. Also, be sure to check out all the other channels that are participating this month. Down below, we have Brews and Reviews, Brooke Clark, Christina's Journey, Danny Buxton, and The Story with Serenity Dawn. Thank you guys so much for watching. It means the world to me. Don't forget to like and don't forget to subscribe, and I will plan on seeing everybody tomorrow. Goodbye.